All right, and we are live. Welcome to all of my flexers, my big flexers, my super flexers. It has been a while since we have been live. All right, so if you're watching this in the moment or afterwards, I just want to say thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate you all. I know that you're here because you want to hear about some taxes. Taxes. So, of course, you guys, this is not a topic that I am well versed on. And so, we have called in a certified public accountant to tell us all about the taxes. Tax season is coming up, and we want to learn just what benefits we can receive as J1 holders. Maybe some of you are H1 holders. Um, hey, God's child. Hi, hi. Thank you for being here. All right. So, just to get started, remember that if you are here, go ahead and click a like on the live so that it can be shared out to other individuals. You guys know how the algorithm works. Go ahead and click share, like, subscribe if you have not yet subscribed to Malika's Flex. And just come on in, you guys. Come on in. Let me know that you are here. Come on in. All right. So, as you guys would have seen on the thumbnail, I have a young man who is ready and willing to share information with you all. I ask that you put your questions in the chat box if you have questions. Yes, you guys, I'm not sure what happened just now, but I'm back. I am back. I am back. I don't know what I just clicked on just now. But yes, if you have questions throughout our guests presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and of course we will attend to your questions. Well, when I say we, I mean our guest will attend to your questions afterwards. All right, so don't be afraid, just put your questions as he presents, and we will look at your questions afterwards. Hi, Shellian. Hello, Jessica. Hello again, Shellian. And hello to everyone who is here listening in to us. So let me go ahead and start. You guys know I don't like to delay the starting. If you miss it, you just watch it afterwards. But let me go ahead and introduce our guest for today. So our guest is Mr. Ryan Maxwell, certified public accountant. And Mr. Maxwell is a yardie, you know, he is Jamaican. When I say yardie, he is a Jamaican. And one thing I love about introducing individuals to this platform is, especially one like this where we're talking about taxes. I love when we have someone that we can relate to, or someone that can relate to our situation. And that's why I love that he's Jamaican. But not because he's Jamaican, it doesn't mean that he's not catering to other nationalities. So if you're of another nation, just know that Mr. Maxwell can also assist you as well. So, yes, he is Jamaican and he went to the Glenmuir High School. I don't know if anyone here used to go to Glenmuir, but big up Glenmuir. Big up all what do we call people who went to Glenmuir? Do we say Glenmuirites? I don't know. Somebody can correct me. When Mr. Maxwell comes on, he can tell me what we call students who went to Glenmuir. He went to the Glenmuir High School in Jamaica, of course, and he furthered his studies at the University of Tampa in Florida. All right. He has his bachelor's in accounting, and of course, as I stated before, he is a certified public accountant, and he got this certification, of course, in the United States. Now, Mr. Maxwell is no one that is new to this. He's true to this. He has over 10 years of income tax preparation, helping both residents and non residents. Now, he specializes in working with J1 and H1B holders from various states, but to be more specific, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Arizona, Georgia, etc. So, wherever you are, you can always reach out to Mr. Maxwell. He is ready, willing, and able. He is a managing partner at Maxwell and Associates Inc. Now, if you want to learn more about this company, I have already put in the description box down below a link to the Facebook page where you can message Mr. Maxwell. And if there's another way of contacting him and this company, he will let you know throughout his presentation. Without further ado, let me bring to the stage Mr. Ryan Maxwell. I wish I had the sound effects to really do the claps.
Okay, are you seeing me now? Or
We are seeing you. We are
okay,
here.
great. Thank you guys. Malika, thank you for introducing me. Thank you for thank you for introducing me to this platform. I'm very excited to talk to your fellow flexers. And yes, if you do go to Glenmore, we call those past students or students Glenmorites. So
Okay.
I'm very excited to be here. This is an interesting topic. When it comes to taxes, a lot of people get nervous, and because most countries do not have taxes, like they do not have like income taxes. So you come to
Mm-hmm.
America, you got to pay for. You got nice parks, you got police, you got nice roads that you drive on, right? So you have to pay taxes to kind of help the government kind of facilitate some of those nice stuff that you have. So I know it's a pain to pay taxes, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to you want nice stuff, you have to pay for nice stuff, right? So you come to the right place. This is gonna I'm gonna try to tailor this towards J1 and H1B teachers, international teachers. Like Malika say, I do prepare taxes for like residents in US, but my main niche is just J1 and H1B teachers. So I'm very excited. So real quick in the chat, just to kind of tailor the information, if you could just type in whether or not this is your first time. If it's your first time, you can just say new, or if you're an existing veteran teacher, you can just put an existing teacher. So we kind of tailor the presentation towards that. Like I'm not sure if they're seeing my screen or not. Can they see my presentation screen?
All right. Let me add it to the stage. It's there. There we go.
Okay, great. Again, like I said, welcome. Very excited again. So let's just jump into it if you're ready. Just let me know if you're ready, Malika.
We're
We ready?
ready.
Okay, great. All right, cool. All right, so let's jump into it. So a quick overview of what we want to try to accomplish. I know we got a lot of teachers on here, so I had to come up with a presentation. I can't just be coming up here and talking. So I have to put up a nice presentation because we got a lot of smart people on board today, a lot of teachers. So I appreciate that. So what we want to accomplish today, at least we want to see like what are the following requirements for like J1 teachers. What are your tax obligation, your filing requirements? Do you have to file a tax return if you're a J1? Right. And then a lot of people get forms in the mail, like, well, what is this form for? Or any type of forms that they get that's tax related. I'm going to try to let you kind of understand those forms, right? There's a bunch of different forms that you get. So we're not going to go over all the forms, but some of the main ones, like your W2, your W4, those are like some of the standard forms that you would expect that J1 teachers, international teachers get. And then this is a big one that people may be tuning in to learn more about, which is a tax exemption treaty, right? So not a lot of people is familiar with this area, right? It's only if you're working specifically in this area that you kind of you will deal with this benefit right here, the tax exemption, right? An exemption meaning you're exempt from being taxed, right? And then we want to jump into the FICA exemption, right? So the FICA is the Social Security and Medicare taxes that you guys pay. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that, and then what happens if you file an incorrect tax returns, right? What are some of the implications if you file an incorrect tax returns? And then we're trying to keep this as much informal as possible. So if you come up with a question and you want to ask a question right there and then, just put it in the chat, and then Malika will read it out to me, or we can just wait until the end to do all the question and discussion. But feel free to put your question in. We either gonna start the presentation and address those questions, or we just wait at the end, whichever way works for me, right? Normally when I'm in class, I like to stop the teacher right there and then and ask question, because by the end, when she finished the presentation, if I didn't write down that question, I forgot, I forget about it. So it's up to you guys. Whichever one works for you, I'm fine. Right. So yes, so welcome. So let's dive into it. Trying to go slow. Sometimes I type really fast. So it kind of slow me down, Malika, if you think that I'm going too fast, because I've been doing this for over a number of years, right? So again, I'm a big football fan, right? So I came here on a soccer scholarship, football scholarship. So I went to Glenmere, got a football scholarship. I paid D cup for Glenmere and everything. So I went to the University of Tampa, like Malika said. So I got my bachelor's, my master's down there, and then started working for CPA firms. Got my CPA, which is like equivalent of the ACCA that I think they have in Jamaica. So it's a very rigorous exam that you have to pass to get your certification. And then I kind of, just deal with taxes. So I do taxes for like corporation and individual. And then later on in my career, I then kind of start focusing more on the J1 and the H1B. So I'm very familiar with the tax consequences for, roughly anyone that actually filed a tax return here in the United States. So also, if you have like a small businesses, like, Schedule C, or you have a corporation or S corporation or anything like that, I'm very familiar with those rules as well. All right, so back to the J1 and the H1B international teachers filing obligation, right? So we want to point out some important dates. So normally when you come here in America, normally some students or some teachers come here in the middle of the year, right? So you come here in like August or June, to get yourself situated for the school year. So tax return is filed on a calendar year, right? So from January all the way to December, right? And you have, depending on what state you're in, you have two tax returns. So people in Florida, some state does not have any income tax. So for my teachers in Florida, you guys are lucky. You don't have to be worrying about state income tax. And then my teachers are in Texas, Tennessee, Washington. You guys don't have to worry about any state income tax. So that's great. So unlike the people that are in Georgia or North Carolina, when in their third and fourth year, they will be paying state income tax. You guys in Florida don't have to worry about that. So that's why people love Florida. They love to go work in Florida because there's no state income tax, right? So you have two tax returns. You have your federal tax return and you got your state tax return, depending on the state that you live in and you work in, right? And then, like I said, it's a calendar year. So from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. When you come in January, you're going to look back at those 2024. When you come in 2025, you're going to look back at your 2024 to see what income you have in that year. And that's the year that you actually file your tax return for. So it's a look back, right? So the tax season runs from January through sometimes, normally the IRS will start it in the third week of January, right? So you'll normally get your W-2 around the third week of January, say like January 25th, around there, right? And even though you receive your W-2, the tax season doesn't officially start yet. So the IRS normally every year they send out like a different date, and the IRS stands for the Internal Revenue Service, right? They're the company, or they're the service that's responsible for that you file your tax return with, and they're the one that's responsible for giving back your refund or whether or not you owe taxes. So they will set the date sometimes late January, and then that goes through until April 15th. So depending on if the 15th fall on a weekend, then the next business day will when your tax return is due, right? So most people try to file within these time because people want to get back their refund from January to April. People normally just go ahead and file. But if you're one of those person that, you're not too concerned about getting back a refund, or you can file for an extension, right? And the way the extension work is, it's just an extension to delay sending your form to the IRS. Your extension has to file within January through April, and you tell them, okay, I'm filing an extension now, and then I'm gonna send you my tax return on October 15, right? And normally, sometimes when people owe taxes, they do it that way, where they put in an extension, or sometimes you don't receive all of your information yet, right? You don't receive your W-2 yet for some reason. You don't receive all of your 1099s yet, or you don't receive some information. So because you don't receive those information, you're not ready to file your tax return. So you can apply for an extension, right? If it's a situation where you're going to be owing taxes, you can file for an extension. However, you have to pay the tax by April 15th. So you do not get an extension to pay the tax. You just get an extension to file the form itself, right? And that's a 6 month extension from April through October. You get all that time to look for your documents. And then once you got it, you can file it anytime between April through October for your extension. All right. All right. So the first forms, like most people are familiar with the W-2 form, right? This is the form that the district will send to you that going to show you the total wages that you made for the entire year. So, most people, sometimes if this is your first time, from August to December, you will see in box one the total wages, all of your paychecks, pretty much the gross paycheck. You're going to see in box one that they've been paying you the entire year. And then in box two, you will see the total taxes that they took out of your paycheck, right? And then box three, if you're going to see the total wages again in box three. And then box four, you will see the taxes, Social Security taxes that you paid to the IRS. And then box five, you'll see your total wages again. And then you will see in box six, the Medicare taxes that you pay, right? So that's how it flows. So for my people in Florida that don't have any state taxes, you will just see your wages, the withholding for federal wages, the withholding for Social Security wages, the withholding for Medicare, right? In North Carolina, South Carolina, they take it one step further, where you will see the same thing as Florida people, but down at the bottom, you will see for state purposes, you will see the wages, and then you will see in box 17, I think, the withholding that they took out of your paycheck to send to South Carolina Department of Revenue or North Carolina Department of Revenue. So that's the one that most people will get in their first year. Is that W-2 form from the district. Like I said, that's going to be issued around January, February. What if you don't receive that? So if you don't receive that, most people just log on to wherever you see your paycheck. You can just log on to your portal and just go look at forms, and you will see your W-2 forms there. What if you don't see it there? Then you can probably reach out to the district, ask them like what's going on. Some districts are good in terms of sending you your W-2 form electronically, and then also send you one in the mail, right? So if you don't receive one electronically or one in the mail, you just reach out to them and let them know that you need your W-2 forms to start filing your tax return, right? And then what if you're going to your W-2 form, but you know that something is not right? Sometimes districts do send the incorrect W-2 form. So then you'd have to reach out to the district to figure out like what's going on. If you think something is not right with your W-2, then you can also reach out to me. I can take a look at it. Then I'll have to go back through all of your pay stub to make sure that whatever is reflecting on your W-2 is actually correct, right? All right, so that's the one that most people are familiar with, your W-2 form that shows you the total wages for the year and your total withholding for the year, right? You have some people that do not pay federal taxes. So you will see the total wages that you have for a year, and then in box one, you will see like zero, right? You did not pay any taxes throughout the year. So that may be some issue, right? You didn't have anything withheld out of your paycheck for the entire year. Another forms that most international teachers will get to is a 1099, right? 1099 forms, it can be different. And when we go through forms, I'm gonna walk you through some different 1099 forms, right? And like I said, these forms are issued by the end of January. You should get these forms, all right? And then we touch on the April 15 deadline, right? So in order to file your tax return, April 15 is the deadline to file a tax return. Not saying that you cannot file it after April 15. You just have to apply for an extension, and then you can file it after April 15, but it has to be before October 15, right? So hopefully I was able to cover some important dates here. January, and then January is a very important date. April is another very important one, and also October, right? All right. All right. So this is a residency of tax purposes. So right. So there's two tax filers in the United States, right? You got your resident, which is the normal U.S. citizens, normal green card holder, right? Most of my international, or 100% of my international, you guys gonna fall into the non-resident status, right? You're not a U.S. citizen, you're not a green card holder. So there's two tax returns. You got for individual purposes, right? For business, you got a lot, but for individual purposes, you got two tax returns. One for the, like I said, one for the regular U.S. citizens and resident, and then one for the non-resident. I get this all the time where my J1, and I feel you guys, you're coming into a system, you don't really know the system. People go ahead and file on the wrong form, right? They file as a U.S. resident and citizen because most tax preparers here, they're not familiar with non-resident status. So if you go to them and tell them, hey, I'm a non-resident, they don't know what to do. They're still going to file you on the resident form because they're not familiar with preparing a non-resident, because they don't deal with non-resident on a daily basis or on a every tax season. They do not deal with non-residents. So they do not understand how to do that, right? So again, for non-resident, J1 is always going to be non-resident, right? You guys always going to be classified H1B. You guys always going to be classified as a non-resident because you're not a U.S. citizen. You're not a green card holder. You're a non-resident, and you have to follow the non-resident filing, right? You cannot file as a U.S. citizen, so you cannot file as claim dependents, head of household, those type of stuff. Those are reserved for U.S. citizens and resident, right? However, this is a tricky one right here, right? So in your very first 2 years, when you're here in the United States as a non-resident, very first 2 years, you're going to be considered a non-resident, right? In your third year or in your fourth year, you're going to meet what is called the substantial presence test, meaning it's a look back test where they look back and say, okay, you've been here for a number of days in the United States over a 3-year period, and even though you're a non-resident, you can still go ahead now and file as a resident. You meet the residency test to file as a normal U.S. citizen and a normal U.S. resident, right? So even though on paper, you're not a U.S. citizen, you're not a green card holder, you meet what is called a substantial presence test, and then now you file as a regular U.S. citizen, regular U.S. resident. So that's what's called the substantial presence test. But for the most part, for the first 2 years, you're going to be considered a non-resident. And my J1 teachers that qualify for the tax exemption, you want to file as a non-resident, because only when you are non-resident, you're able to claim that tax treaty exemption, right? Because the U.S. do not have any tax treaty exemption between its citizens and residents, right? It's only with international countries that they have these tax treaty with, right? So you want to make sure that in those first 2 years you're filing as a non-resident, and then third, fourth year, if you're still here, you switch over to the U.S. citizen form, the 1040 form, and file as a regular U.S. citizen, right? So there's a lot of confusion on that. I get it all the time where one of my Jamaican teachers would be like, hey, somebody, I did my tax return last year and they did file me on the 1040 and I was able to do all this stuff. Why can't I keep on doing that? And then I have to go through the process of trying to explain it to them that, you're not a US citizen, they file you on the wrong form. They can do it, right? They can do it. However, it's incorrect, right? Even though they went ahead and filed you on a 1040, they can go ahead and do it, but it's wrong. They did it incorrectly, and you can get in trouble with the IRS because all of that refund or whatever you get back, right, by filing that incorrect form, the IRS can come back at you and say, "Oh, hey, you're not a U.S. citizen or resident. Please send me back my money." Right? So you can get in trouble for that. And then when the IRS go ahead and do that, you'd have to pay like interest, you have to pay like penalties, and they can garnish your paycheck and all that craziness. So you don't want to do that. You want to stay on the right filing status until you reach, the filing a regular 1040, right? All right. I think I covered that. So again, just to recap, you got your resident, different rules, non-resident, different rules. Most teachers, international teachers, gonna be considered non-resident. Eventually, even though you're a non-resident, in year 3 and 4, you will meet the substantial presence test to qualify you to file as a regular U.S. citizen and resident. That's what I want. That's the takeaway from this slide. I know I talk a lot, but that's the takeaway. All right. Let's switch over now. Let's see. All right. So here we go. Do I need to file a tax return? Right? So you came here on a J1, international teachers. Are you required to file a tax return? And the answer is yes. Right? All J1 teachers or all international teachers are required to file a tax return. Even if you didn't make any money, you're still required to file a tax return. Even if they did not take out any withholding out of your paycheck, even if for that year, for some reason, they didn't pay you or anything, you still need to file a tax return because you're considered a non-resident, and all non-resident has to file some form to the IRS to say, okay, I'm here in the country and I don't have any money, but I got to file this just to stay compliant, right? So if you do not, so normally, again, the non-resident is going to file that 1040 NR, and if you do not have any income or you do not have any withholdings, normally you will file this form called the 8843, just a form to the IRS to say, okay, there's no income, but I'm here in the United States. I got to submit this form, right? And then, for normal residents and U.S. citizens, do they have to file a tax return when you guys start switching over to the U.S. citizen form? Do you have to file a tax return? So it all depends on, what's your filing status on your income, right? So, for instance, you in your 3rd year, your 4th year, you're not a teacher anymore, or you're still a teacher, but you weren't making enough money, probably make like a $5,000 or $10,000. Do you still need to file like a tax return? Technically, the rules, you do not have to file a tax return if you don't meet the income threshold, but you should file a tax return, because mainly what happens is, even if you make like $5,000 or $10,000 and it doesn't meet the threshold, then your employer has been withholding taxes, right? So even though there's not a filing obligation per se, you still want to go ahead and file a tax return, because you will get that money back, right? You will get back whatever they're take out of your paycheck. You will get that back, because you're not going to meet the tax bracket where they're going to tax you. So your taxable income at some point is going to be like zero. So whatever you're paying to them, you should just get that back in the form of a refund. So, you should still file a tax return in all years that you work, regardless of the income, regardless of your filing status. You should just go ahead and just file a tax return regardless. I guess, if it's up to you, but if you have like $5 or $10 withholding, or you didn't have anything with withholding or not, then it's up to you whether or not it just makes sense for you to file or not. But my recommendation is that you just always have to file a tax return regardless of the income or how much was withholding. And this puts you in good standing with the IRS. So, for most teachers, sometimes they want to stay here They don't want to go back to their country. They want to stay here. In everything that you do here, if you're going to the bank, open up a business, or you're trying to get a loan or anything, they're going to ask for a tax return, right? So you want to make sure that you file a tax return. You're trying to get a mortgage. You eventually want to start your family. You're trying to get a mortgage. You're trying to go back to school or anything. They always want to see a tax return. So you just best practice to always file a tax return regardless of your income, right? Just to stay compliant with the U.S. laws and financial laws and
Mm.
the IRS laws. All right, Mike, you still hearing me? Everything good still?
I'm still hearing you. I
Okay,
was
great, great,
kicked out
great.
for a moment, but I'm back.
Okay, great, 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 great. All right, cool. All right. So let's switch over to like some typical taxable items, right? What's going to trigger like a filing obligation? So we already mentioned the W-2 form that you guys going to get from the district. Automatically, that's going to be considered a taxable income, right? You earn money as a teacher, you have to pay some tax on that money, depending on whether or not you're exempt by the treaty, right? And then most teachers have their checking account, they have their savings account. So you have your savings account. That savings account is going to generate some interest, right? And interest here are taxable, right? So you make like more than $10. If you make like more than $10, you put like what? Say for instance, you put $500 inside of your savings account here, and you make like $20 on there. That $20 is going to be taxable, right? So you have to pay at least $2 or dollars on that $20, right? The bank is not going to send you a 1099 if you make less than $10. And some people be like, do I need to put it on the form? If the bank didn't send it, then that's fine. You don't have to put it. If the bank didn't send you a 1099 NIT for your interest, you don't have to put it on your tax return. But anything up above like $10, you will need to put on your tax return, right? And then this is just a side note. So right now interest rates are high, right? So I've been talking to most of my clients. Interest rates are high, so make sure that savings account that you guys have, because some banks just have some crazy low, very very low savings account, like 1.2% or 1 point something percent. No, there's like all the banks right now that's paying you at least 4%, 5%. We can talk outside of this, like what banks are those, but make sure you have your savings account in those banks that are paying like 4 and 5% for interest right now, right? Because banks sometimes they just have your money there, making more money, and then they pay you like some little interest. So make sure you guys have your savings accounts in these banks that are paying at least 4% interest. All right, so you get, if most people, like I said, would have a checking and a savings account, and you will get this 1099 NIT, and sometimes you should get it around let's say January. You will get it around January, around that time from your bank. And then if you have online banking again, you can just go in and check your forms in your online banking, and you can just pull it from there. You don't even have to call your bank for them to send it. Just pull it there and just easy access right there, right? And then I got a couple of teachers that are, they're investors, right? So they own stocks. They're Robin Hood. They're here for a period of time, so they get comfortable investing in stocks in the United States. So they get a form called a 1099 DIV, which stands for dividends. So some stocks, like if you invest in the stock market or you buy stocks, you will get a return on those stocks. So you get a dividend on a quarterly basis from those stocks. So this is another typical form that some teachers get that shows the dividend. And again, dividend is a taxable item, right? You have to pay taxes on that dividend. And then some teachers have retirement account where they decided to invest with the district itself. You will see on your paycheck where the district take out like a portion of your money and they put it into their retirement account, right? So that money that they take out of your paycheck and put into their retirement account with other teachers, right? The money that you're earning on that is not going to be taxable because it's in this retirement account per se. It's not going to be taxable. It's only going to be taxable when you decided to take it out of the district pool and put it in your pocket, right? That's when it's going to be taxable. But while it's sitting with the district in their pool of investment with other teachers, it's not considered taxable income, right? Unlike a dividend where you decided to go invest in Google or Microsoft or Facebook, whenever on a quarterly basis, Facebook will send you a dividend. At the end of the year, Facebook will send you a 1099 DIV that shows you how much dividend you make, right? And then that's going to be taxable. Again, with the district, if you invest with the district and they have it in a retirement account, they're not going to be sending you any 1099 at the end of the year. That money is just going to stay there and just keep on growing tax deferred. It's not going to be taxable, right? So that's how that works if you decided to invest with the district. All right, and then self-employed. Some of my teachers have side jobs, right? Where you may do Uber. I'm not sure if that's you're supposed to be doing that at a J1. That's not a tax question, but got some of my teachers that are very resourceful.
No,
They're
we should
doing
not.
right. They're doing they're doing Uber. They're doing Lyft. Trying to make some side money. So you're gonna be getting from Lyft or from Uber or from these other places, you're gonna get a form 1099 miss, right? This is gonna show you all of the money that you made for that year, for that, within that year. So 1099 is kind of a bit different from W2. So with your W2, right, you're an employee. When you get a 1099, you're self-employed. So those are two different type of workers, right? W2 workers are employee, meaning you go to the place, and the employer tell you how to do your job and whatever. Self-employed person are like contractors, right? You decided to just get up and start doing Uber, right? Nobody tell you what time to start. Nobody tell you what time to come home. You just be on your own thing doing your gig work. That's self-employed. So there's two different tax consequences here, right? When you're employee, your employer is taking taxes out of your paycheck and sending it to the IRS, right? When you're self-employed, um, you know, Google or Uber is just going to send you, if you're supposed to earn $500 for that time that you drive or whatever work you're doing as self-employed, they're just going to give you the $500. They're not going to be taking out any taxes out of your money, right? It's your responsibility as a self-employed person to send in whatever taxes that you think that you owe to the IRS, right? So, on a quarterly basis, if you're making substantial amount of money on a quarterly basis, you should pay what is called an estimated payments, meaning, okay, I'm working from January through to March, and I make probably like $5,000. It's my responsibility as a self-employed person to send in at least $500 to the IRS, because nothing has been sent to the IRS from your self-employed work, right? So you find out that people that makes a lot of money from self-employed, by being self-employed, when they file a tax return, they have a huge tax bill because they haven't been making any estimated payments, right? They've just been raking in all this money and no taxes been paid. So then they have to pay all of this money on the back end, right? Instead of just paying it quarterly, they didn't pay anything. So now they have a huge tax bill. So if you're self-employed and you think that you're making substantial amount of money throughout the year by doing your gig work, is very I'm recommending that you at least paying something throughout the year to kind of cover that tax, because you do not want to have like a huge tax bill at the end of the year, right? And then sometimes when you have a huge tax bill at the end of the year, not only you have to pay this bill, but they hit you with what is called failure to pay estimated payments. So there's a rule that you have to pay estimated payments if you have a certain amount of money. So they're gonna hit you with a tax, additional tax, right? And they're gonna also hit you with another tax where they say you didn't pay enough, right? So there's like taxes. They try to hit you with taxes to kind of incentivize you to pay in estimated payments for the year. right? So again, if you're self-employed and you're making substantial amount of money, try to pay in some taxes for the year. And the way you do that, you just go on the irs.gov, right? irs.gov, and then you go to pay, and then you want to pay what is called an estimated payment. And you do that, you can do that on a monthly basis, or you can do it on a quarterly basis. Some people do it on a quarterly basis. So you just go there and pay, right? So yeah, so those are the typical forms that international teachers will come across, right? And another one, the first form that you will probably get to that I wanted to cover real quick is your form W, your W4 form. So when you come in July or August, the first form that they're going to shove in your face and you didn't even realize that you signed is a form called your W4 form. And I know it's very hectic. You know, you guys come into a new country, you're filling out all these onboarding forms, and it's overwhelming. And you just sign it. You know, you just sign because it's time to go teach, and you just sign, which is okay, right? But you have to, I want you to understand this form. So the W4 form is a form to the district to kind of tell the district like how much taxes they need to take out of your paycheck, right? And everyone sometimes dependent fill out their form differently, right? You know, some people might say, okay, I'm single, or I'm married, or I'm a head of household. So not, you know, it's always different. You know, it's always different of how you fill out your form, right? So and depending on how you fill out your form, again, like I said, then the district will know how much taxes to withheld out of your paycheck and send that taxes to the IRS. So that's the first form you will fill out, the W4 form, which is a very important form, right? Especially for my teachers that are not in that tax exemption anymore. It's not so much important in the first 2 years if you're tax exempt. You know, for those teachers that are in the country that are tax exempt, it's not so much important to fill it out correctly, because regardless, you're not going to be taxed in those 2 years, right? But once you come out of that tax exemption, it's very important that you fill out that form correctly. And then the W2 form, W4 form, it's an estimate, right? So you can be single and still put on the form married filing jointly, or it could be head of household and still put single. It's not like a legitimate form where you gotta say, "Oh, I'm single, I gotta put single on here." It's just an estimate to tell the district that, you know, I want you to take out this, or I want you to take out that out of my paycheck. They're not gonna hold you to it. The tax return is a form that you have to fill out based on your actual filing status. And then your W4 form, you can change that every if you want to change it every paycheck, you can change it. You can change it every quarter. You can change it every month. If you feel like, oh, they're taking out too much, you can change it. If you feel like they're taking out too little, you can change it. So you can change it whenever you want to. It's just a form, just an estimated form for, you know, to know how much to take out of your paycheck, right? So again, first form you're gonna fill out is that W4 form. And sometimes when we first come in like June or July, and then the next form that you'll come across again in January is a W2 form. You'll come across, if a savings account, you'll come across a 1099 NIT. If you have dividends, you'll come across that 1099 DIV, and if you're self-employed, you'll come across this 1099 MIS. So those are the typical forms that most of my international teachers will come across. And if you do see one, you know, like one of my teachers, sometimes because you're international teacher, right, and you open a savings account, you'll receive a form 8, I think it's 8WAN, right? It's just a form to the bank to tell them that this person is international, and off that interest that person is getting, the bank needs to withhold a portion of it, right? Because you're international, they don't want to send you $100 of interest, right? And then you just take your interest and run off, right? So that's why the bank sends you that form for you to fill out that W8 EIN form, for them to at least hold $20 of that, right? So that's what that form is. Some teachers get it, some teachers don't. But if you're not gonna have like a substantial amount in your savings account, you don't even have to fill out that form, right? All right. All right, so here's a big topic that's a lot of people tune in to kind of hear about. So the tax exemption treaty, right? So there's a tax rule or there's a treaty rule between the United States and about 60 countries, depending on if your country fall into that category. Jamaica is one for sure, Philippines, and India. So it's a teacher specific rule, right? That says if you're a teacher, you're coming to the United States to work for a number of years. For the first 2 years, you're tax exempt, right? Meaning for the first 2 years, you're not supposed to be paying tax, which most teacher when they look at their paycheck, they see tax coming out, which is fine, right? The federal tax. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about the federal tax. This is just for the federal tax. You will see that taxes coming out of your paycheck, which is fine. They can go ahead and do that. That's fine. You just have to file a tax return when it's tax time to tell them to refund you the money. So you will still end up in the same place, right? So if you make $50,000 for the year, but if they did not take out anything, right? Then when you file a tax return in the first 2 years, you do not get back anything because you're supposed to get $50,000. You got your $50,000 throughout the year, right? Some teachers, it happened that way because one of the big questions that I got sometimes was, two teachers will come to me and be like, hey, my friend got big refund and I didn't get back anything. And then I'll be asking, and then I ask them, okay, then how much taxes did you pay throughout the year? And then I look at their W-2, they didn't pay any tax. You got your $50,000 straight up front. Your friend though, she got 45,000 throughout the year, right? That's why she had to file a tax return to get back the 5,000. Then you guys end up at the same place. You make your $50,000 throughout that year. She just get back her $5,000 in refund. That's all it is, right? You guys end up at the same place. And if I were you, I would rather them not. If I'm in my first 2 years, I would rather that them not taking out any taxes out of my paycheck. And when I file my tax return, I do not get back anything because I was able to get my $50,000 every pay period to take care of my daily bills that I have. While my friend had a smaller paycheck, and then she get back her $5,000 at the end. So if I'm a saver, I would want to do it where I get back a refund at the end. But if I'm a
Most of us aren't savers, Mr. Maxwell.
right.
So we prefer for them to save for us.
Right. So that's good. If you're a saver and in your first 2 years, that's fine. But for me, I don't want the government to be holding on to my money for those long older months and not pay me any interest. So for me, I don't want to get my $50,000, throughout the year, and that's how I will do it. But most people just like to have a big refund. But the underlying issue here is that if you guys are coming from the same country and you're tax exempt, right? You're getting back the same. You're getting back. You're paid the same amount of money, $50,000 for a year. You're gonna end up in the same place, right? Because you're tax exempt. You're not supposed to be paying any tax. It's either you get it up front or you get it back as a refund, right? And this also applies to state, right? So all of my teachers in state that pay that have a state tax like North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, the state follow Fed, meaning if they take out state taxes out of your paycheck, right, you're supposed to get it back as a refund if you're one of those countries that they got a tax exemption with, right? So it's Fed and state. And again, this is a very challenging topic for a lot of people because it's a country specific stuff, right? So when I'm doing a tax return, one of the questions that I always ask, what country are you from? Then I got to go look and research that tax treaty to see what type of tax treaty is associated with that country as it relates to teachers, right? So the regular tax preparer here, you tell them, oh, I'm from Jamaica or I'm from India, and I'm tax exempt. They're gonna be looking at you like crazy. They don't know what you're talking about, right? Because they're not familiar with these tax treaty exemption rules, right? So they're gonna be looking at you crazy when you tell them that I'm tax exempt and I shouldn't be paying any taxes, right? So beware of that. All right. So, and then, I got African teachers, and unfortunately for, some of my African teachers, there's not a tax treaty between the US and some of the African countries, right? And the
Mm.
same goes for like South America too. There's not a tax treaty. So Jamaicans, you guys are very lucky. Indians, you guys are very lucky. Filipinos, you guys are very lucky that Jamaica has this tax treaty with the United States. Unfortunately, like I said, some countries do not have it. You guys don't get the luxury. They do not get the luxury of a tax exemption, right? So this is a very important topic. If you're going to be doing J1 teachers taxes, you got to understand this, right? This is something that you have to be good in to do a J1 teacher taxes. This tax exemption, it's a must. If you do not know this, so the first question you should ask them when they're doing your taxes, are you familiar with non-resident taxes? That's the first question. Are you familiar with the tax treaty as it relates to J1 or as it relates to H1B? Those are the first two very important questions that you need to ask your tax preparer whenever you're ready to file your taxes. And if the question is no, then you have to find somebody that does all of that stuff. All right. So the next one is a FICA exemption. Remember how I tell you that on your paycheck for if in your first 2 years you shouldn't be paying any FICA tax, regardless if you're J1, right? You shouldn't be paying any FICA tax. And the FICA tax again is the Social Security and Medicare. It's a percentage, so it's 6.2 percentage of your total wages for Social Security, and then it's a 1.45 percentage of your wages for Medicare. So there's two taxes that make up this FICA tax, right? And J1 teachers in your first 2 years, you're tax exempt. H1B is not tax exempt from this, right? And it's a calendar year tax exemption, meaning when you come here in to July or August, right? From July or August to December, they consider that like one full year. So you're tax exempt on the FICA for that, right? And then the next year from January all the way to December, you're tax exempt from that. So then in your third year, January, you will see the stats starts kicking in, right? You will see the stats start kicking in. That's when you're obligated to pay, right? So make sure if you're in your first and your second year, you want to make sure that you're not paying this tax right here, because a lot of districts sometimes I see teachers where they're in their first 2 years and they're paying this tax, right? This is money that you shouldn't be paying, right? So make sure you look at your W-2 or not your W-2. Make sure you look at your paycheck to make sure you're not paying this tax in your first 2 years. You need to start paying this in the third year, right? And if you're paying this tax in your first 2 years, you can request for the district to refund you this money, right? And if the district can refund you this money, or maybe they say that they already send it to the IRS or whatever, then you have to file a specific form to tell the IRS that you're tax exempt. They need to send out that money, and that's where you'd have to file a form to get that back, get that money, right? Another thing that I want to point out on here is, unlike the tax exemption treaty that we talked about earlier, right? The tax exempt treaty is a 24 months, 2 year exemption, right? So a lot of people don't know that. So for instance, I have a filer that come here in tax year 2022, right? Their tax exemption, normally, teachers come here in August. So it's from August all the way to December. So that's a 5-month exemption that they get, right? And then in 2023, they will get a 12-month exemption from January all the way down to December. And then in 2024, they will get another 7 months. So that will make my 24 months, 2 year tax exemption, right? So for that year, the tax return is a little bit challenging in 2024, mainly because a part of your income is going to be taxed and a part is going to be exempt. So with your preparer, they have to know like how to divide up your income, where part of it is taxed and part of it is exempt. So all of those third year teachers that come here in 2022, your tax return is going to be very challenging in 2024, mainly because you're going to qualify for that exemption, but not the entire year. Only part of that year is going to be considered exempt. So your tax return is going to be a little bit challenging, right? So those are the rules that you have to follow some tricky rules in that 2024. This year, 2024 tax return is going to be a little bit tricky, right? So unlike the tax exemption treaty, which is 24 months, this FICA exemption is a calendar year, meaning, again, you come here in August, is just from August to December that they consider 1 year, and then the next year from January to December will be considered another year, right? So it's not like the 24 months that we have in the tax exemption treaty, right? Okay. All right. So, I spend a lot of time too fixing people tax return. So amended tax return is a tax return that you fix people tax fix a return. So you file on the wrong form for some reason. You file on the 1040 when you should have filed on the 1040 NR. You didn't claim the tax treaty exemption. You were eligible for it, and you didn't claim. So there's all type of different stuff that I can do an amended return for. That you can do an amended return for, right? So when someone messes up your return, all is not lost, right? So that's a good thing. You can file an amended return to fix it, where you file the correct form and you also file this other form to show the correction with the old and the new, and then tell the IRS why you're filing this form, right? So I do a lot of amended. So most of the teachers sometimes they go ahead and file wrong in the first year, and then when I'm filing there in the second year, I catch all of these flaws or incorrect stuff that did, and then I file an amended return for them to fix whatever was done incorrectly, right? So all is not lost. It's just that amended returns take forever sometimes, right? Because the IRS are already dealing with the current year amended return. They got to go back and do some research with your old return and your new return. So it takes forever. So what I tell my clients is, we're going to go ahead and file a sale. It's just that it's going to take a little while for them to fix everything and send you back your money. So amended return works where when you file your old return, so for instance, you file your old return and you were eligible for like a $500 refund, right? And when the person did your tax return, you end up getting back $300. We can file an amended return to get back that $200 that you did not get, right? So again, all is not lost. You can always file an amended return to fix, your return that was done incorrectly, and you have to file it within 3 years of whenever you're supposed to receive that refund, right? So we can't go back and amend 2019 return. We cannot go back. If you're trying to get a refund, we cannot go back and amend a 2019 return or a 2018 return. You got to file it within 3 years of when you're supposed to receive that refund, right? All right. So yeah. So again, want to make sure that again, some people decided to sometimes I'm getting people for the first time and they'll be like, oh, I use TurboTax or I use other tax software. So TurboTax and some other tax software, they don't have like the non-resident status inside of there. So when you go ahead and fill out your tax return inside of there, it's just going to do it as if you're a regular US citizen or resident, right? So some software does not have a non-resident status inside of there. So that's something that you got to be very careful when you decided to just do it on your own. You got to be very careful of what software you're using to do your tax return, right? And then, like I said, the tax exemption, a lot of people is not familiar with the tax exemption, right? So, go to a regular person, HR Block, or these places that does tax return. It's very important that you ask them if they're familiar with the non-resident status or they're familiar with the tax exemption, right? If they're not familiar with these, then you got to seek people that knows these rules, because, like I said, I got people coming back to me. I'm doing amended return now where people are getting back like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 that was missed. Because remember, when you're tax exempt, right? For instance, most of my my clients that are tax exempt for like January to December, if you miss that, sometimes normally you would get back like a $3,000. You're supposed to get like a $3,000. Sometimes they end up, when the person do their tax return, they end up paying tax return because they filed on the wrong form, right? When in fact they were supposed to get back like $3,000 because you're working like half of the year. The second year is when most of my clients get back their biggest refund, mainly because they've been working for the entire year from January all the way down to December. And for the entire year, you've been paying taxes. And for the entire year, you probably pay like, I have clients pay like $8,000, $9,000 in taxes for the entire year because you're working, your first semester and your second semester, right? And you find that when the other preparer did their taxes, they're ending up owing taxes. So instead of getting back that $9,000 or that $10,000 that they're eligible for, because they're not familiar with this tax exemption and the J1 status, that person end up paying taxes when in fact they were supposed to get back $9,000, $8,000, $6,000 in taxes. So again, it's very important that you ask these two questions whenever you're trying to get your tax return done. Okay. Okay, all right. So yeah, so that's it. I try to see if I could keep it within an hour. I know I kind of cover a lot of stuff, and I'm not sure. If you have any questions, you can always reach out. If because
We
sometimes
have some questions here in the comment section. So thank you so much, Mr. Maxwell, for sharing with us. Many individuals in the chat they're saying, this was very informative. Like Charnel said, I love the information. Shelly said, very informative. Um, Kima, hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, says, blessing to you, Ryan, as you continue to serve and help us navigate this world of taxes in America as J1s. So we're very appreciative of this information, very rich. Um, One of the first questions that I saw, Fitness Dance Studio Fitness. I don't know if this question was answered for you throughout the presentation because she asked this question very early on, but she asked, "How can I prevent myself from owing?"
okay, so it depends on if all right. So if you're tax exempt, right? You're not going to be paying any tax regardless, right? So you're not going to be owing at all if you're tax exempt, right? Even if you didn't pay any tax, if you make $50,000, you didn't pay any tax on that, you're not going to be owing anything at all because all of your income is exempt from being taxed. You will find it if you're not tax exempt for like all my other teachers in other countries that does not have a tax exemption. You want to make sure that you're paying in at least 10% of whatever money you're making. So for instance, again, say for instance you make $50,000 for the year, you want to make sure that you're paying at least $5,000 for the year, right? So again, it's very important that you fill out your form, your W-4 form. It's very important when you fill that out and you're looking at your pay stub that at least 10% of taxes is being withheld on a paycheck period, right? And that will kind of help you, at least cover some of the tax obligation that you may have, right? When you come to file your tax return. So again, very important that you're paying at least 10%. And 10% is just what I use, right? It's a good marker to use. There's not really an exact number to say,
Right.
but because I'm only going to know how much taxes you owe when I actually do your tax return. But I like to tell my clients that try to pay in at least 10% of whatever income that you make for that year.
Okay, thank you. Jessica is asking, is this applicable to H1B teachers? I think she asked that question when you were speaking about the treaty with J1 teachers.
Yes, yes. So this is a teacher specific tax rule. So it's not like a J1 specific. It's a teacher specific that says if you're a teacher and only if you're a teacher. So you come here as a J1 as a teacher, you come here as H1B as a teacher. It's a teacher
Mhm.
specific rule you get that exemption for. Yes.
Okay. Uh, Kat asks, well, asked, how about J1 teachers on their third to fifth year? I guess that's after the treaty. How much can we get for the tax refund?
Right. So I wouldn't know like how much you will get back for your tax refund until we do the taxes, but how it going to work is right. So again, in my example that I use, so I'm assuming that you're probably, you came here in tax year 2022. Most of my teachers sometimes they come in August. So from August all the way to, and if you're coming from a tax exempt country as well, this relates to this example for tax exempt country. So you came here in August to December for that 5 months. You're tax exempt of 2022. Then in 2023, from January all the way to December, you're tax exempt. That's 17 months. And then in 2024, from January through July, that's 7 months. That's the 24 months of exemption that run out. So from August all the way down to December, a portion of your income is going to be taxable, right? So not your entire year, because again, exemption is only for 24 months, 2 years. So when I do your tax return, I would have to figure out now, okay, of the total income that you have, what part 7 months is going to be exempt, 5 months is going to be taxable. Then I would have to calculate what the taxes on the 5 months, right? And then depending on whether you're paying enough or not, then you will get back a refund. That's how that will work, right? So it
Right.
all depends.
I think maybe they wanted to know if they're eligible to get anything back after the treaty, maybe.
Okay, okay. So, all right. When the treaty run out, you become like a regular U.S. payer, U.S. resident, right? You become a regular person now. That's when you're going to meet that substantial presence test that I talk about, where you've been here for a number of years. Your exemption was qualify you in the first 2 years. You become a regular person. So it depends again on how much taxes you paid in, depend on your filing status, because now you're going to change your filing status. You depend on your income, you depending on your tax bracket, it depends on how much taxes you pay. So I really can't tell you if you're going to be getting back a refund or not, right?
Mm.
Because I only know that answer once I do your tax return, right? Because it depends on a lot of different factors when you're filing a tax returns.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. There's another question. Before I ask the question, just to let you guys know, since you guys are on, remember Mr. Maxwell is certified public accountant. And so he's not just presenting this information to you today, but if you have not yet found someone to do your taxes, or if you want to switch over to someone who is more informative on the process, aka which is, Mr. Maxwell, he knows how the thing works. You can always reach out to him. Remember, I have the link to his um, Facebook in the description box down below. Is there another way that individuals can reach you?
Yeah, you can either text me or email me. My number is 813 four
Let
four
me write it.
nine zero one
Hold
one
on, hold
eight.
on. That's too fast, too fast. Hold
Okay,
on.
sorry. Yes,
813.
449
Mm-hmm.
0118. That's the best way.
I'm putting
That's
that in the chat and I'll put it in the description box later on.
Yeah, that's the best way to reach me. You can always and like I said,
You said
now is
this
the
is
best
WhatsApp
time.
or for calling?
Yeah, WhatsApp, regular call, doesn't matter. And now is the best
Okay.
time to call and get all of your questions and answers now, because when it comes tax time, it's going to be super busy. And so now I like to have these upfront with people where I can just walk them through the orientation, just, kind of answer all their questions, make them feel comfortable. Anything that they may have going on, now is the best time for me to address that, and not at tax time in that moment. So that's why I reach out to people to tell them, hey, now is the best time to reach out and ask a
Right,
question.
right. So the next question that's there, Charnel is asking, can J1 file for a return for their kids? And is there a difference filing married or single after the treaty.
Right. Okay. So after the treaty, like I said, then after the treaty exemption, then you become a regular tax filer, and then yes, you can file for your kid, you can file marital filing jointly, you can file head of household, you can claim child tax credit, you can claim earned income credit, you can do the regular stuff that American citizens do now after the treaty. Correct.
All right, thank you. Another question from Georgia. Georgia, do you file taxes for working J2 spouse?
Yes. So J1, J2. So unlike the J1, J2 does not qualify for this tax exemption, right? J1, J2 is just going to be a regular tax preparer. Then there's no exemption, but I do file tax return for J2 dependents as well. Yes.
All right. Uh, Charnel says, I recommend Mr. Maxwell 100%. He is very professional and will never leave your messages or calls unanswered. He is very patient above all. Let me just show that on the
Okay. Thank you,
screen.
Chanel.
All right, so we have individuals vouching for Mr. Maxwell. So, guys, I can't say it enough. I don't see any more questions in the chat box. But remember, you can always reach out to Mr. Ryan Maxwell. He has done such a wonderful presentation today. I've said it before. Please like the live, you guys. Remember to share, get the information out there. And if you do decide to go with Mr. Maxwell, just let him know I'm here from Malika's Flex. She sent me over here.
Right.
Um, just so that he knows that, all right, these are my people. Um,
Mm. Yes. 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 Yes.
and that's it, you guys. Any more questions? I know that there's like a 20-minute, not 20-minute, 20-second delay between StreamYard and YouTube. So I'm just waiting just a few more seconds just in case someone else has a
Right.
question that they perhaps really wanted to ask. Now is the time, you guys. We are wrapping up.
Great. So
We are
yeah.
wrapping up.
So yeah, yeah. So just to just to recap again, this area is very complicated, right? The J1 and H1B taxes is a very complicated stuff, right? So not just you have to be like studying this stuff or focusing on this stuff to kind of understand the rules and regulation that relates to international teachers, right? So make sure when you're getting your taxes done, the people that are doing it are familiar with the rules associated with international teachers. That will just be the takeaway, right? And also, if you have questions, if you like the presentation, you have questions, you still have some questions, you can always reach out, and I'll be happy to answer all of your questions, that you have. And Malika, I really appreciate you giving me this platform again to talk to
All right,
these
no
teachers
problem.
because, like I said, there's a lot of money has just been wasted in the system, right? A lot of people it's just been a lot of money has just been sitting out there that they're entitled to, and they're just not aware of it. And it's okay because it's I can see it because you're coming to a country you do not understand, and the program, the sponsors that bring you guys here, they're not tax people. They're only just going to tell you there's a tax exemption out there, and then you would have to do your research to see who are the best people to help you file that tax return. And then sometimes you guys are overwhelmed, you go to these other places that does not understand this stuff, and then you do not get back the money that you're supposed to get back. So again, very important that you go to people that knows these rules inside out that can help you to file your taxes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And we have come to the end of our presentation. Uh, Kitna says thank you as well. Thank you so much. And that's it. We are going to end the live stream, you guys. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe.
All right. Thank you.